Two companies, one country. A rivalry so fierce, it didn't just shape the automobile industry, it rewired what human beings believe they deserve when they get behind the wheel. This is not simply a story about cars. This is a story about obsession, identity, and the relentless hunger to be the best.
It begins in the late 1800s in the industrial heartland of southern Germany, a region called Baden-Württemberg, where rivers cut through dense forests and engineers dreamed in horsepower. In 1885, a mechanical genius named Carl Benz quietly assembled something the world had never seen, a three-wheeled, gasoline-powered vehicle. He called it the motor wagon. Most people laughed. His wife, Bertha, did not. She took the machine on a 60-mile unauthorized road trip to prove it worked. History remembers her courage. The world remembers the name, Benz. Just miles away, around that same period, another engineer named Gottlieb Daimler was pursuing the very same dream through a different door. Daimler's approach was faster, more powerful, more aggressive. He didn't just want transportation, he wanted domination. These two men never truly collaborated. They barely acknowledged each other. And yet, through a twist of corporate fate, their companies would eventually merge in 1926 to form Daimler-Benz, the parent company of Mercedes-Benz. A union born not from friendship, but from financial survival during the brutal economic collapse of post-World War I Germany. But here is where the story turns. Because 60 miles north, in Munich, another company was rising from the ashes of war, and it had absolutely no intention of sharing the throne. Bayerische Motorenwerke, BMW. The name itself sounds like an engine turning over. BMW was born in 1916, initially manufacturing aircraft engines for the German military. Their famous blue and white logo, often said to represent a spinning propeller against a Bavarian sky, became a symbol of precision engineering even before they built a single automobile. After World War I, Germany was forbidden by the Treaty of Versailles from producing aircraft engines. BMW was forced to pivot. They turned to motorcycles, then eventually to cars. And when they did it with the kind of obsessive attention to detail that would become their signature. By the 1930s, BMW released the 328, a sports car so advanced, so aerodynamically sophisticated, it was winning races across Europe and turning heads at every corner of the continent. Automotive journalists struggled to describe it. It wasn't just fast, it felt alive. Mercedes-Benz watched and responded. This is the rhythm that would define the next 100 years. One company moves, the other counterpunches. Neither ever blinks. Through the devastation of World War II, both companies lost nearly everything. Their factories were bombed, their futures uncertain. BMW's Munich plant was so severely damaged that for several years after the war, they survived by making pots, pans, and bicycles. Mercedes rebuilt in Stuttgart, resuming car production by 1946, just 1 year after the war ended. That speed, that institutional stubbornness, was a statement. We are still here. We are not finished. BMW's resurrection was slower, and in some ways more dramatic. By the late 1950s, the company teetered on the edge of bankruptcy. A vote was held among shareholders. Some wanted to sell the company to Mercedes-Benz outright, let the enemy absorb them, end the fight. The vote failed by the narrowest possible margin. BMW survived, and what happened next changed everything. In 1961, BMW launched the 1500, a compact, sporty sedan aimed directly at the emerging European middle class. It was affordable, it was sharp, it drove like a dream. Germans called it the Neue Klasse, the new class.
Automotive historians call it the car that saved BMW from extinction. It also drew a clear battle line. Mercedes-Benz had built its reputation on grandeur. Heavy, prestigious, vault-like automobiles favored by diplomats, executives, and heads of state. Their tagline, Das Beste oder Nichts, the best or nothing, was not a marketing slogan. It was a philosophy, an attitude. BMW answered with something different, something hungrier. They positioned themselves not as the car of the establishment, but as the car of the driver. The person who didn't just want to arrive somewhere, the person who wanted to feel every mile of the journey. The ultimate driving machine. 4 words, a declaration of war. Through the 1970s and 1980s, the rivalry intensified with almost cinematic precision. BMW's M division, Motorsport GmbH, began producing performance variants of their road cars that bordered on street-legal race vehicles. The M1, the M3, machines engineered to the absolute edge of what physics would allow. Mercedes responded with the AMG division, originally an independent tuning company that Mercedes eventually absorbed, turning their stately sedans into thundering performance icons. The 300 SEL 6.8, the Hammer. Cars that looked like they belonged in a boardroom, but performed like they belonged on a racetrack. Each launch was a message, each model a move in a chess match that had no end in sight. Engineering teams in Stuttgart and Munich studied each other's patents with a focus that bordered on obsession. What gear ratios were they using? What suspension geometry? What engine displacement? The competition wasn't just commercial. It was intensely, almost personally technical. Engineers on both sides have admitted in interviews over the decades that they bought each other's cars the moment they launched, tore them apart in the workshop, and spent sleepless nights asking the same question. How did they do that?